My first endeavor into Osquery was pretty much last year's QueryCon. It was a flood of information for someone who's completely new to Osquery, so sitting in the audience and trying to keep up was quite difficult, but it was fascinating, and I was really excited I came. But what happened is we took a lot of that back to our team, and it was really focused. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got where we are. So why did Carbon Black get in the Osquery land? Basically, we had a lot of interest from within our own teams to provide this really valuable data to our own customers. People thought, hey, this is really cool stuff. I think that they would value it as well and find interest in it. So we basically packaged it up with our sensor, right? So what we gave them was a canvas. I like a good metaphor. I'm also an artist, so I like to kind of have fun. So we gave them a canvas of paints, and we found out that they were like, cool, what do I do with all these paints? I'm not an artist, I'm not a painter, or I don't know how to use oil or whatever, right? But we were like, it's so cool, come on, it's this really awesome new data, and we're really, really excited to give it to you. So what we learned was a little bit more of this. I don't know how many of you have bought someone a brew kit because they mentioned they like beer, and then it went to their basement and they never used it, right? That's kind of how we felt. Like we got put on the shelf with all the other fun holiday gifts that no one ever touches again. And our biggest fear was that the value would never get seen and be donated to Goodwill. So we really didn't want this. I'm sure you all, you don't want that, right? We want our community to grow and for people to see why it's awesome and why we're all here. So how did we get here? Well, like I said, I started with QueryCon, right? I'm the product manager for this project. I started here. I learned all this really great, valuable information from a bunch of artists who are very talented and know Osquery inside and out. So we took back that knowledge. We also did a ton of research with extremely advanced security professionals. So we had them using prototypes, betas, shared screens, tons of interviews, getting back lots and lots of very focused information. And that first focus ended up being very advanced users who understood Osquery, knew what it was, and knew how to make it valuable, who were very focused on incident response. And then we created an MVP, right? I use a lot of product jargon, sorry, I'll do my best to avoid. So minimal valuable product, we shipped that, right? Little select star, some stuff, you could run it, you can get back answers, isn't that awesome? Well, no, we had people walk away, right? They were like, well, that's nice, I get back these results in a table, so we formatted it nicer, that's cool, right? I don't know if you guys all love your results back in Osquery or not. But we felt that we missed the mark, right? If people aren't finding value in this data and value in Osquery, then we failed. So we went back to the drawing board and decided to do a bunch of research. So we sat down and wrote a ton of questions. A bunch of my team is right here, so they can also answer more on this. I'm going to do a high level, but you can always poke us more on what we learned. We wrote them all down, and we decided to go after them. Another thing that we did know, and I took out all the lovely data information around timelines and data points because, we're Carbon Black and we hide some stuff. But basically, this is what our trend looked like. We shipped a product, and the usage of queries, the amount of queries being run over time was going down. Yet the users was going up. So it was really confusing. We were like, what's happening here? Why is no one running a query? That doesn't make any sense. So we started with, who are these people, right? You came, you said you were excited, you were interested. Who are you, and why are you not running queries? So here's what we did. We started with a bunch of usability calls. We also did internal team feedback, right? We have our own SOC, we have our own security analysts, we have our own threat analyst. We went to all of them as well and talked to them. We looked at a lot of user analytics. We set up a bunch of that so that we could see what was going on. And we did a little bit of a market check-in to just kind of see like, hey, community, hey, world, what are you thinking about this stuff? So starting with who are these people, right? First and foremost, who are you? Why did you end up here? And What was your original interest and intent? So for role and background, we found out that most of these folks were security analysts, technically in their title, but they all said that they came from an IT background. Every single person said that, and I think a lot of you probably also did. I saw it in a few presentations this morning, right? And so they had that mindset, and they were talking a lot about that kind of usage. And then when we asked, what is your team like? A lot of them said we're about like 1 to 3 people. Sometimes we count the IT guy because he's alone and he sits right there, so he might be part of our team. And sometimes we're a mix, right? So that was interesting to us. We were thinking they were bigger teams. So these are individuals who are doing a lot and are spanning more than just their actual ask as a professional. When we asked, have you heard of Osquery? The answers were quite entertaining. One person said, yes, I've known it for 10 plus years. Right. Do you know SQL? No one would admit no, right? Yeah. So they'd go like, yeah, sort of. I think I've done some SQL. Yeah, no. So why did you try this? Some people said, it seemed like something that would help with my productivity and my team, and that we could learn from it. But then when we asked, have you been using it? No. And we actually made them pull up their screens, and we could see, hey, you ran like 2 queries in the amount of time that you've had this product. So a lot of confusing stuff going on there. So I'm going to go through each of the groups we talked to. There are way more bullets that are under each of these buckets, but I figured for the sake of time and you all staring at slides, that would be too much. So from our current users, the top 3 themes we heard were, number 1, what, why, and when should I run a query? How is easy. In Osquery, it's not bad. You go into the terminal, you can do some stuff. Same with our UI. But what should I run? Why should I run it? And how often should I run it? 3 big questions. Second thing, what do the results mean? Some of them are pretty clear and they make sense when you bring back the answers. Some of them you're like, I ran this, I thought it would be cool to run, and then I got back a bunch of tables stuff, and I don't know what I'm supposed to look at and what I'm supposed to focus on. And then the last thing is this doesn't fit my workflow, especially with the incident response case. If you got an alert, you're concerned, and now you want to find out more information across your organization about that alert, do you know what you should be looking for? Have we given you any context on what just happened and how to take that to Osquery? Right, so that's a big, big bridge there that was not being fulfilled. So with our own team, obviously our own internal team was incredibly blunt with us. We thank them for that. But their first thing was, hey, it's really hard to get going. Like, I got a lot of stuff to learn. That schema's really long. I got to read through it. I don't have that kind of time. The data returned is hard to consume. This has to do a little bit more with, hey, I ran this query, I ran this query, I ran this query, and the results are all separate. What do they mean together? Right? Like, how do I view that as a whole and understand the data larger than just this information here and this information here? Right? And I know that's part of our jobs, but they were like, hey, I got a lot going on. How can you make that faster for me to digest? And then the last thing is, we're lazy, right? We're all kind of lazy, and we just want to make our tools do things for us faster. So can I just set it and forget it, right? I'll come back when I want to and check it out. So because of the IT background, we did go sit with then our own IT team. We have, we have an IT infrastructure team, and then we have a help desk group. They're technically in our company under the same branch, and we sat with them. Their first reaction was, oh, it's another tool. I have so many. Now there's another one. Another big helpful thing that they told us is that they're always trying to get to root cause faster. Like, how can you just get me there as fast as possible? And then the last one was interesting and sparked some thoughts in our head is, what do you recommend I run? And do you have ones you recommend for benchmarking so that I can kind of monitor what's going on over time, but where we should be as a team? So from this, we basically spent a lot of time synthesizing all this information, trying to understand what can we do? Like, how can we use this information to make it helpful to us and helpful to the community? So we came up with 3 top problem statements, right? These newcomers do not feel comfortable, confident, and they're not getting hooked. I think probably a lot of people in here can say you're pretty hooked. I'd say Victor is fully hooked. But these guys aren't, right? They don't get it. So, right, flip that around, cross out all the knots. This is what we want. These are our goals, right? So us as a community, this is how we should be looking at bringing more folks in. So how did we get here revisited? So we look at this again and we go, okay, now we know our current users a little bit better, the ones that are now coming in and getting accustomed to Osquery, right? They're IT security based and they're new to this data, but we still are not quite sure, what are they trying to do, right? They asked us what, why, and when, but we needed to flip that back and ask, no, hey, now that you understand a little bit more of this data, what do you want to do with it? Because there's 224 plus tables, right? There's a lot you can do, so what do you want to do? So we ran an experiment. So we sat down and we came up with those use cases ourselves, and we decided to pick a bunch of queries we could map to those use cases. We call it the popularity contest, right? It was kind of hacked together just to see, like, hey, what happens if we do this? What are you naturally drawn to versus us asking? So I'll admit, when we asked, every person said threat hunting, because you're a security person, that's what you're like trained to say, like, yes, I'm so interested in threat hunting. Well, false. Yeah. So almost 40% of the group of people who ran queries for a 2-week period, this is a 2-week span, hasn't changed much since we've done it, by the way. 40% are doing IT hygiene, 30% are doing compliance. Incident response didn't even make the list. It's not even up there. Yeah. So we rewrote our chart. So now we had our current users, and now we had their top use cases. So this was really helpful for us to see. I hope it's helpful for you to see that this is where people are, they're drawn to this. We still have a ton more questions. We didn't get it all done. This is only pretty much a 2-3 month span of work that I'm showing here. So we're still curious. We still want to find out more, as I'm sure a lot of you all probably do. So we're going to continue to do experiments and interviews and data monitoring, and I'm super excited about the new board because I think we can probably figure this out more as a collective group versus than just Carbon Black doing this in the corner. And then I have some specific feedback to the community. And I'm going super fast, so I caught us up on time if that's okay. So the very specific feedback, I'm a product person, so I like to not confuse everyone with my giant list of feedback. So I'm going to start and end with my top priority, which is improve the barrier of entry, right? So I will willingly admit that I had to go through the entire schema for GDPR reasons. So reading every single table description, guys, there's like plenty of room for improvement there, and I am willing to help because I don't know C++, I don't code at all, but I can update descriptions in GitHub. So I'm excited to help there. If you kind of look through the schema, I wrote 2 down that that are good specific ones, right? If you see ACPI, that specific table, we don't spell out what that is, but then right below we do for Active Directory. So it's kind of funny, like we pick and choose which ones we're like, oh, this acronym will let you know what it is, and this one we don't. Some other ones that you'll see in there, Docker container labels is probably my favorite. That is the table. The description for what that is Docker container labels with the underscores pulled out. Thank you, whoever had that one. So I just, I think that we could do a little bit better there. A lot of the things we heard were jargon in general. When we said table or schema or columns, we lost people immediately. Right? To them, it was like, oh, it's data, it's questions, it's answers, right? It's not like, help me out. What are you talking about in layman's terms? The other thing is why? Why do I want to run the Docker container labels? right? What does that get me back? How is that valuable to me and my team? So that's pretty cool. The last piece is the required columns. I noticed this. It's in the GitHub if you go into the description, but it's not on the schema. So a lot of people don't realize that, or maybe it is in some, and I'm wrong here, but you copy and paste, you're all excited, you run it, and guess what? You had a required column. That's so annoying. So now you got to go back. Path for file, that's probably the number one most confusing table in the schema. So that's what I recommend here. Kind of have a rule of thumb. I come from agile land where, oh no. It's okay, I'll just keep talking. So we had a rule on one of my teams I worked with where if you pull a story or you pull a bug and you don't understand what it says, the description of that fails, right? Put on the hat of what someone would look like if they've never pulled that before. So that's my recommendation for the tables, or if you're adding new information to the schema, right? If you were to step back for a second, maybe ask someone sitting next to you, hey, would you know what this meant if you were to look at this table? And if they say no, maybe it's me, just revisit it. Make it a little bit more understandable to somebody. We did have, I'm pretty sure I remember the rest of my slides. We had some cool ideas. So one of them being a location for people to share queries. Right? I think a lot of you're laughing because I've also brought this up multiple times in the office hours. Hey, look, we're back. So an area where you could do that, we've been crafting a lot of these queries related to the use cases. Like, they're cool, and we know a lot of you do them too. So if we can share those with more people and have a way to do that that's pretty easy, there's my slide. That would be really valuable to a lot of people coming into the community. Another one is Osquery mentorship. This one's hard, right? Like I pointed out before, people have day jobs. I get it, but it is kind of nice to have a buddy to talk to. Mine ended up being one of our own internal folks who's going to talk tomorrow more. But having that relationship, so you can just have someone to quickly poke and be like, hey, what does this mean? What is this? How do I benefit from this? Or what do you recommend I do here for me and my team? More query hackathons. I think it's a great way to learn. So Carbon Black, we're excited. We want to try and host some of those, provide a facility, provide a space for that, because they're fun. I live in Boulder. I know people like coming to Boulder, so we can have one out there. And just so you know, we did actually recently, we had an internal space for our own, our own customers. We had created a query sharing space. This actually was an experiment. It started as us just adding to it because we didn't have time to do it in our own product. So we thought, okay, we'll just use our community space because that's faster. This had such interest from all of our users. It was probably more visited than our actual product, which is weird, I know. But we decided, okay, there's value in this. So our marketing team let me know yesterday that they pushed it public. So you guys can go here, check it out. Give us feedback. It's probably not the most robust thing in the world, warn you on that, but you can definitely help grow this, and we can get some queries out there that are helpful to everyone, not just our own internal community. So it only supports just one query at a time, right? So it's not like these are packs right now. That would be really awesome if we could actually get more of those in there too. But that's what we got going on. So. And yes, apparently there's a contest. I feel like that's completely unfair to announce to this room of people because you guys all know Osquery inside and out, but you could win $100, so there you go. I do have 7 minutes left, so if anyone has questions. You went up first.
What's the URL for this? Yeah.
I wrote this at like 1 a.m. last night, so it's not there. I'll get it. I believe if you look up Carbon Black Query Exchange. No? Wow. I'm going to stop guessing then. Maybe someone on my team can find out real fast while I ask.
I always gotta carry Tanya.
Did you have the same question? I'll go this way then.
I have a different question, assuming. So you wrote, it sounded like what you were saying is that you guys wrote a bunch of different queries and then gave the users access to those types of queries, and that's how you're doing your evaluation of what your users were actually interested in, right?
Yeah, we assigned categories, and so before you could even run a query, you had to pick a category.
Got it. So my question is, and it sounded like you were kind of talking about this, about being willing to share some of those queries, but for those threat hunting and instant response queries, are you guys open to sharing those with the community?
Yep.
Great.
You're welcome. Yeah. And our so we have a threat analyst team. They call themselves the TAO team. They will continue to contribute to this. So anytime there's a new thing out in the news, we'll add it here. Yes.
So the follow-up question would be, are you going to put those queries on this query exchange?
Yes. Anything else? Back there?
How does this work with your existing ER product?
How does it work with it? It's on the same platform and with the same sensor. So we're trying to integrate more and more as we keep building it out. But what? John's here. Hold on. What do I say?
Was that question in regards to CD response?
Just ER in general.
Yeah, so there's two separate products. There's CD response, which is on-prem or in the cloud. That is our Osquery implementation. Has nothing to do with that. So we have the predictive security cloud, which has CD threat hunter, which is a completely different thing from CD response, but very similar in many ways. That our live query, the Osquery implementation is in that.
Anyone else? Did we find that URL?
No.
Really good feedback. Thanks.
I have just one last question. You were a product manager before you worked at Carbon Black, right? Was it in cybersecurity?
No.
So I'm curious, did you find, you said one thing that was kind of striking was that you said what people were telling you and what people actually did were pretty different. Did you find that that was more true when you kind of entered the cybersecurity field than what you've done in the past as a product manager? Like people were a little bit less upfront when they were verbally trying to describe their needs versus how they actually behave?
That's an amazing question. You know, I think if I were to think about that, okay, I would say security folks in general start a little bit timid in their responses, but the more you talk, the more you make it like, hey, we're not here to judge your version of security. Just give us feedback, you know, be honest, let us know what you're trying to achieve, because what we want to do is help you achieve it. Does that kind of help?
Yeah. And do you feel like that was a little bit different than how you saw, your users before? What field?
Oh, for sure. Oh, I was running a potential competitor to Slack called FlowDoc. You can Google it. It's dead now. Yeah, it was. Comments were sent in Twitter, right? Like, hey, what are you guys doing? You're being a disaster. This is how I want to work. I would say it's much more constructive feedback versus criticism that you're trying to constantly please. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Cool. Thank you, everyone.